Elon Musk changes his mind about joining the board of directors for Twitter, or at least declines the offer that was put in front of him. So we will talk just a bit about what's going on with that. The trial in the alleged kidnapping plot of Gretchen Whitmer has concluded with 2 acquittals and 2 hung juries. And there is cope and seethe to go around everywhere, so we'll talk just a bit about that. Mayor Pete is shocked that people don't know just what it is that Democrats do for black people. So we'll talk just a bit about what is going on with that. And the White House is freaked out that Putin's next win could be in France by putting far-right nationalists in France. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You know what? It helps to have the live chat up and have you guys chatting back and forth with each other. If you actually have the program open that compiles all the chats into one place, that helps. I find out. I got started here, realized I didn't have the turns of pages up there. I didn't have that up there. I didn't have the give, send, go up there. I didn't have the live chat open up there. So if you guys have been talking for the last few minutes, I apologize, but you've only been in one of the 3, so talk back and forth amongst each other. I've got that fixed, and you can see the chat in all of the chats ready to go, ready together, and now you can speak amongst yourselves across platform as well. So let's get started here. Let's get going. It has been, well, it's been a weekend, that's for sure. We have got plenty of stuff to go over here today because, we get the trial coming in for Gretchen Whitmer. We get that. We get Pete Buttigieg out here talking stupid. Elon Musk decides that he's not going to join the board. So, yeah, it has been a banner weekend here over on Contemporary. But, hey, that gives us long shows. And, hey, if you like what you're doing and what you're seeing here and you want to throw a donation towards us here, there are usually links. If you're on the Twitch and the YouTube side, you'll see links for the Buy Me a Coffee to help me out here. I think the PayPal Direct is over there too. If you guys want to throw me just a little bit of that, that is awesome because we are working hard to get you guys the best news over here. Otherwise, get some friends in here, tell a few people about this. Throw the lemons if you're over on the DLive side. I will look over there occasionally and see if you guys are doing anything with that. But with that, let's get started and let's get into it. But before we do, head on over and check out, because I made sure to get them up on the top of the show, head on over and check out turnsofpagesproductions.com. Turnsofpagesproductions.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. Once we get started, we'll be carrying great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Any Project that Britt is involved with, which she is currently not going to be involved with any of them, and the Porch Boys, so go check all of those shows out, plus a new surprise show that's going to be up at launch here. As of right now, we are going to be stalling out because it doesn't look like I'm going to be on Brian Nichols after all. He hasn't reached out to me. He hasn't got back to me. And, the beginning of April is almost over at this point. We're almost to we could arguably say the middle of April. So I guess maybe it's not happening. But I will find another place to come back out and get the name out there to get this out. But those of you who are in the know, also go and check out the Give, Send, Go That is givesendgo.com/turns of pages 101. Unfortunately, the government name is up there. That's why I've been stalling about it, but, we can't stall anymore. We've got to get this started. And I know that a lot of people would rather get their news from the people, by the people, for the people, and from the people who are just like them, not the people who have sat in suits that cost more than their houses. So definitely give that a check out, givesendgo.com/turns of pages 101. One of the things I plan to do on this week where I'm not working is I am going to try to keep the shows to what they usually were, the 9 o'clock hour to go, even though I don't have to go to work after this because I do have stuff going. I am trying to finish out the real estate courses so I can start to separate myself from the 40-hour-a-week grind, or at least get to a point where I've got a side hustle where I don't have to worry about it as much as I do anymore. But one of the other things I want to do this week is get some promos started and figure out just what it is that we're going to do about the fact that most of the people who look at this are going to look at this and see that's me and then wonder who the government name is underneath it. So that's what we see off of that. That's where we're going with that. And, well, let's get started. Looking into the Dow reset while I was getting everything set up here this morning. But the Dow did finish up on Friday at 34,721.12 points. That is above the previous close line. And it did dip down below from the start of it. It actually... Because, we're sitting here, the previous close was just a little bit lower than where it's at now. But, yeah, it dipped down, and then it came back up through a vengeance and stayed up through the rest of the day here. So that's what we see coming off of that. Looking into the Bitcoin has dropped significantly throughout the past few hours. It started up, and it is down now to 41,078.70, which means it's taken a significant drop for the last weekend, too. Coming back in here, April 8th, we were all the way up to the 44,000 mark, just shy of it, and then dropped to the 42,500 mark, and then up a little bit back to the 43,500 mark just about, and then just the bottom fell out of it over the weekend here. So, and just over the past day, the bottom has fallen out of it, so we'll see what's happening with that. I'm sure this will have something to do with the regulation that's coming or somewhere off of that. So let's see what the scrap metal is doing here. Looking at that, a lot of green, except for the catalytic converter market, obviously. On the averages, copper is up, steel is up. Steel is up to $300 a ton, by the way, which usually we're seeing the high 200s off of that. So congratulations if you waited on taking some steel that you had in. Aluminum is also on the upswing. Looking at your individual plays, all of your copper is up except for insulated copper wire and number 2 tubing. Both came down. Brass and brass shells are both up as well. All of your steels are up right now. Aluminum is also mixed with aluminum siding down, but all of your other aluminum plays are up. Electric motors are up. Ballasts are up. Lead is up. Car and truck batteries are down right now. Catalytic converters are all down. Compressors are up. Alternators are up. Carbide is up. Hard drives are up. Motherboards are... All of your computer plays are up right now. Hard drives, motherboards, power supplies, low-grade boards, PC tower. Those are up right now. So that's what we see coming in off the finance here for the morning. Let's see what IBD has to say. Dow futures fall on China, yields, Tesla falls, Elon Musk won't join the Twitter board, from Ed Carson, and we will be talking just a bit about what's going on with that as well. Dow futures fell early Monday, along with S&P 500 futures, and especially NASDAQ futures, as Treasury yields fell, continue to rise, and Chinese stocks sold off amid fears that the Shanghai lockdown and other COVID restrictions will hurt the global economy and roil supply chains once again. Tesla China sales were solid in March, but the Shanghai plant has been closed for the past 2 weeks. Meanwhile, CEO Elon Musk will not join the Twitter board of directors. The major indices and leading stocks had a negative week as a hawkish Federal Reserve and surging Treasury yields took their toll. The stock market rally is under pressure. Tesla had an outside negative reversal week. It now has a handle on a weekly chart after running up sharply, but shares slid early on Monday. Meanwhile, Apple drifted lower, providing a little more heft to its handle, while still trading tightly. While Tesla and Apple stock are doing relatively well, most growth stocks are not. In the healthier parts of the market, Callon Petroleum is trading tightly on a weekly chart despite its porcupine reputation. General Dynamics is also trading tightly as it forges a new flat base. Molina Health has been trading tightly in a buy zone while also finding key support this past week, and an advertisement that brings us back up to the top. Investors should be cautious about making new buys in the current market week, which is surprising to hear coming from IBD with a Democrat president, because usually they're in there and saying, buy, let's pump those prices up because the Dow has got to be good, otherwise they're going to think that the market is bad and they'll think that the president is bad. Tesla won't join the Twitter board. We will be talking about that a little bit later on. But because of that, Twitter stock has fallen 2% before the open. Could the latest must-Twitter turn bolster former President Trump's struggling Truth Social network? The Digital World Acquisition Group, the SPAC partner for the Truth Social parent, Trump Media and Entertainment, popped early Monday after plunging 27% last week. Separately, private equity firm will buy SailPoint Technologies for $6.9 billion or $65.25 a share. Sail stock show up about 30%. Tesla's on the IBD leaderboard. Tesla and CPE are on the IBD 50. On the futures, Dow futures lost 0.3% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures sank 0.6%. NASDAQ 100 futures retreated 1.05%. Which is very significant. The 10-year Treasury yield rose 4 basis points to 2.75%, signaling yet another 3-year high. U.S. crude oil futures tumbled nearly 5%. The Shanghai Composite fell 2.6% on Monday, with Hong Kong's Hang Seng down 3%. In addition to the ongoing COVID restrictions, China's producer price index leapt in March. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we see coming off of that. Let's grab one from Market Watch real quick. Dow taking minority stake in consortium constructing LNG import terminal in Germany. So this will be a stock to watch. From Michael DeBay, Dow Incorporated said Monday it would take minority stake in Hanseatic Energy Hub GmbH. The material science company said it's working with HEH's members to advance Germany's capabilities to import supplies of liquefied natural gas, bioliquefied natural gas, and synthetic natural gas through their construction of an import terminal. The HEH consortium, which now includes Dow, Fluxys, Belgium, SA, Partners Group Holding, AG, and Bus Group, is planning to build, own, and operate an import terminal for liquefied gases on Dow's Stade, Germany Industrial Park. The terminal is planned to be built by 2026 and would be co-located with Dow's facilities in Stade. Dow is contributing the land for the construction of the terminal as well as infrastructure services, off-gas heat, site services, and mutual harbor use rights. So this is Dow Incorporated, not the Dow Jones Industrial Average that's going on with this. But this is also something to watch, and this is going to be speculative in the short term for what the fuel is going to do in Europe as they attempt to continue to move themselves away from Russian oil. Even though I think that once all this whole thing with Ukraine is over, they're just going to go back to being, oh, hey, you remember that thing you guys did in Crimea? Oh, remember that thing you guys did in Kiev? Oh, don't worry about that. Please keep selling us our fuel. But this will have speculative marks on the global market as far as energy goes, as far as heat goes, and as far as oil prices go. So something to watch with that, something to see as we go with that. And again, in the short term, it's all going to be speculation. We won't start to see anything for another 4 years. But that's what we see off of that. Anything concrete, rather. Just speculation. But other than that, that's what we see off of that. Let's get into the main news of the day. I have the live chat up here ready to go. Let's get started. First and foremost, the accusation, because, you know, it's evil Fox News. So we have to make sure we call evil Fox News for all the evil that they do. Call to activism. Breaking on April 7th. Fox News doctored clips of Obama's visit to the White House to make it seem like Biden was lost. Anyone else think they should be stripped of their broadcasting license for telling lies? Well, first thing all I have to say about that is if you want to talk about doctored clips and using doctored clips to spread lies, the first thing I've got to say is, what was the line again? Anybody? Anybody? Oh yeah. Very fine people on both sides. But furthermore, like, we don't care about the fact that the president's lost. We know he has dementia. Nobody cared that it was doctored to make him look like he had no idea what's going on. The most telling part of this whole thing was the fact that nobody wanted to talk to Joe Biden. He's walking around trying to get himself in the conversations while everybody's fawning over Barack Obama again. And I mean, I was talking about this in the Discord while I was setting up the scenes and putting the news stories in order for this, but they did the celebrity treatment to Barack and Bill Clinton. That's actually how we got on this. We were talking about Bill Clinton, but they did the same thing to Barack Obama. And of course, because of the celebrity treatment that they gave Barack Obama, I mean, look at the people who were at his birthday party. You know, he's having these big name rappers and R&B singers at this birthday party. He's got the celebrity treatment off of this. They didn't do it to Joe, but that's for obvious reasons. I mean, having Uncle Sniffendiddle walking around while you're trying to have kids around on the Kids' Choice Award or whatever the hell else they do on Nickelodeon at this point. That's a problem. That's a big problem. But yes, as far as stripping a license because of telling lies, yeah, spare me. Because what do we have? The Rittenhouse trial, the Sandman trial, the Sandman incident. Very fine people on both sides. You are the masters of selectively editing the people on your side. And I realize that call of activism probably isn't in the mainstream news, but yeah, this is, by the way, Twitter's new algorithm as well. Because every time I hit the home button, again, remember, I've never blocked anybody on Twitter. But every time I get up there, every time I go up and scroll to the top, I've got 4 accounts, and they're always super leftoid accounts that I don't follow, that say, you might like, and it's always just you might like. Sometimes it's autobiographies and documentaries, which is why I Get Married Trump. But yeah, it's always some uber leftoid up the top, and you know, I see gold like this. So that's what we see off of that. All right, let's see what CNBC has to say. Let's go talk about Elon Musk. So, breaking over the weekend, Elon Musk decides not to join Twitter board, says CEO Parag Agrawal. From Laura Kolodny. Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk has abandoned his plans to join the board of Twitter, his social network of choice. Parag Agrawal announced publicly Sunday that Musk remains in the largest shareholder of Twitter, and the company will remain open to his input. Musk informed Twitter on Saturday morning that he would not, in fact, take the board seat. In pre-market trade on Monday, Twitter's stock briefly tumbled more than 8% to less than $43 a share before recovering slightly. At 5:20 a.m. Eastern Time, it was down 4.28% and trading at $44.25 a share. Musk's appointment would have started Saturday, contingent on a background check and a formal acceptance, according to Agrawal. We were excited to collaborate and clear about the risks. We also believe that having Elon as a fiduciary of the company, where he, like all board members, has to act in the best interest of the company and all our shareholders, was the best path forward, he wrote. The Twitter CEO did not say whether Musk gave specific reasons for changing his mind about taking the new obligation. Well, I've got a few ideas, and we'll talk about that. And the Daily Wire has a few ideas as well. Encouraging company employees to remain focused, Agrawal said, there will be distractions ahead, but our goals and priorities remain unchanged. On April 5th, Elon and Twitter said that he would be joining Twitter's board a day earlier. The Tesla CEO and the world's richest person disclosed via financial filings that he's the social media company's biggest shareholder. Twitter stock jumped 4% on Tuesday following the board announcement on Monday. Musk's stake was initially revealed. The company had its best day since its IPO in 2013, skyrocketing more than 27%. In a financial filing from Twitter specified that as long as Musk served on its board, he would be limited he would be limited to owning no more than 14.9% stake in the company's common stock, outstanding including through derivative securities, swaps, or hedging transactions. And that paragraph is important to what it is that we see off of this. Musk could theoretically increase his 9% stake beyond that limit now. Throughout the weekend, without revealing that he had turned down the board seat, Twitter, Musk posted a number of ideas to transform the social media company and its products. One of the suggestions was a chorus joke in the form of a Twitter poll. Musk asked people to vote whether Twitter should drop the W from its name. Doing so would turn Twitter into Titter, an allusion to female anatomy, which, I mean, if you've been to some of the weird side of Twitter, there are a lot of fucking titties there, so that's what we see coming back up off of that. More serious suggestions from Musk included to let Twitter Blue subscribers play with Dogecoins, get an authentication checkmark, and keep Twitter Blue free of advertisements. Hey, my Twitter experience is free of advertisements, and I don't pay for Twitter Blue. I have an ad blocker. Everyone who signs up for Twitter Blue pays $3 a month should get an authentication checkmark, Musk wrote, and no ads. The power of corporations to dictate policy is greatly enhanced if Twitter depends on advertising money to survive. So, that is what we see from that, and I mean, there's some stuff that goes on with that. Really, honestly, and that was the most important part to me. Are we going to see a hostile takeover coming? Because the deal was, when he joined the board, he was no longer allowed to carry more than 14.9%. Now he can. Now he can take 20, 30, 50%. If he could come up with the cash, he could buy the whole company, theoretically. Now, mind you, that is a lot of fucking cash. And coming out with that level of cash would probably tank other markets because that would be a lot of assets getting liquefied all at once. What is that, like $40 billion? To liquidate $40 billion all at once would be, yeah, that would send a few things rolling. But it'd be funny. And as I said at the beginning of this, I don't really care who owns Twitter. I don't care who's on the board of directors. I go in there, I follow their rules. I don't get mean and nasty. I don't call names, despite of the fact that I have names called upon me often. I don't go back. I report the ones who get violent. But I come in there, I debunk the leftoids, and I move on with my fucking day. But the reason that we follow this story is because, well, it's really, really, really funny. Plain and simple, it's really funny. Let's read one of the suggestions that he had here from Fox Business. Elon Musk floats turning Twitter's headquarters into a homeless shelter. From Anders Hagstrom. Elon Musk, Twitter Incorporated's largest shareholder, proposed turning the social media company's San Francisco headquarters into a homeless shelter because no one shows up anyway. Musk made the proposal via Twitter poll Saturday night. Nearly 1.2 million people had responded by Sunday morning, and 91.1% of them voted in favor of the idea. Fuck, I wish I'd seen that poll. I would have said the same thing. Fuck yeah. Turn it into a homeless shelter. There is the tweet. Convert Twitter's San Francisco headquarters into a homeless shelter since no one shows up anyway. Musk's poll comes a week after he purchased a 9.2% stake in Twitter stock, making him the company's largest shareholder. Musk has been critical of Twitter's handling of his free speech on the platform and has proposed a number of tongue-in-cheek changes to the company since his stock purchase. He tweeted another poll Sunday morning on whether to remove the letter W from Twitter. The only available response were yes and of course. Because who doesn't love titties? CEO Parag Agrawal announced that Musk would join Twitter's board of directors last week, and then last night announced that he wouldn't. Musk will also participate in the town hall Q&A session with Twitter employees, some of whom have expressed concern of Musk's presence at the company. Agrawal announced to employees on Thursday. We say that Twitter is what's happening, and what people are talking about right now. Is that Agrawal? That's Agrawal. Often we at Twitter are what's happening and what people are talking about. That has certainly been the case this week. Agrawal wrote on Thursday in a company-wide email, according to the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. Following our board announcement, many of you have had different types of questions about Elon Musk, and I want to welcome you to ask those questions to him. I mean, it would take up some of the homeless problems that happen in major leftoid cities. How's a bunch of them over there? Because again, I mean, it's not just that nobody's going to work, but I mean, really nobody's going to work. It's the fact that so many of them are working remotely with no plans to go back to the office. So that's what we see coming off of that. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Musk's decision not to join Twitter board signals potential major move he can now make on the company. From Ryan Saavedra. Entrepreneur Elon Musk's decision not to join Twitter's board reportedly means that the world's wealthiest man is no longer restricted in how much of the company he can buy. After becoming their top shareholder with control of more than 9% of the company, Musk signed an agreement with Twitter for the following terms as long as he served on their board. Mr. Musk agrees that so long as Mr. Musk is serving on the board and for 90 days thereafter, Mr. Musk will not, either alone or as a member of a group, become the beneficial owner of more than 14.9% of the company's common stock outstanding at such a time, including for these purposes an economic exposure through derivative securities, swaps, or hedging transactions. Since Musk declined to join the board, he is not bound by any restrictions on how much of the company he can buy, journalist Yashir Ali noted. Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal sent a statement on Sunday night that it was Musk's decision not to join the company's board after the company offered him a seat. I'm sure it was. I'm absolutely sure that it was. It was his decision to come out and say, you know what, I can still buy more now. And I promise you that offering him the seat on the board was a hedge to make sure that he didn't go back out and buy some more. Because with everything that we see off of this, that's one of the biggest sides of this is the fact that, hey, he's going to go back, he's going to take a controlling interest, he's going to go shut everything down. But as long as he was on the board, the big thing was, oh, well, he's got to act in the best interest of the company. Well, I don't think he cares for the country. Correction, I don't think he cares for the company, but I think we've known that for quite a while. I really do. He uses it to get people riled up and meme and make his brand bigger and bigger and bigger, but for the most part, if they shut it down tomorrow, he'd go to a different platform. He's probably on a different platform already, reveal himself on a different platform, and everybody would flock over there. Excuse me. So, not on the board. He can buy them out. He can pump and dump. He can do all kinds of things with this now. Let's grab one from the Associated Press. Move on. Let's go talk about the Whitmer kidnapping plot. From the Associated Press, Whitmer kidnap plot, 2 men acquitted, hung jury for 2 more. From John Flesher and Ed White. Some photos of this. Gretchen Whitmer addressed the state during a speech in Lansing. Jurors on Friday acquitted 2 men and deadlocked on 2 others of plotting to abduct Whitmer in 2020. These are the people that were allegedly going to go back and do this. I wonder if we see the FBI guys if they'll actually have their credentials on. Probably not. Let's see. A jury on Friday acquitted 2 men of all charges in a plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer, but couldn't reach verdicts against the 2 alleged leaders, a stunning defeat for the government after a weeks-long trial that centered on a remarkable FBI sting operation just before the 2020 election. A stunning defeat for the government. My heart just got a little bit warmer. You love to hear those words, a stunning defeat for the government. I love to hear those words. Whitmer did not immediately comment on the outcome, though her chief of staff was critical, saying Americans are living through the normalization of political violence. Let's back up. Let's back up on this for just a second. Normalization of political violence. Now, most people look behind me and see the Gadsden flag sitting up here behind me. I'm sure Mr. Bananas is probably going out and telling all of his buddies and all of his little echo chamber Discord servers right now, oh, look at the right-wing guy, he actually reads Daily Wire and Fox News. But realistically, I come out here all the time and say that I wish the government was smaller. I wish we could do something about the government and also make sure that you are well armed up in case the government brings the fight to you. I often tell you, don't bring the fight to the government. Bringing the fight to the government is a stupid idea. Because they will bring the military and you will become deceased. And you can't fight against the government if you are deceased. But do arm yourself up and prepare yourself in case the government brings the fight to you. Because at that point, you stand a chance. They're not going to roll a tank down fucking 26 to come take care of a guy in a small apartment that's got a Gadsden flag on its wall. Plain and simple. But when we look into something like this, I mean, living through the normalization of political violence, if you are in a group, and I'm sure that there's an FBI agent watching this, maybe it's Mr. Bananas. I'm sure that there's an FBI agent out there who's watching this that says, hey, maybe we can convince this guy that he should go back and take a shot at Evers. He should get up on the sniper post and take a shot at Evers. So let's send 10 people in there to invite him to our group of 11. Make him our 11th member and say that he should be the one that get up there and pull the trigger. And of course, I would be arrested. When you are in a group of 13 and 9 of the people are informants, you're being entrapped. And the jury saw through this bullshit. The result was announced on the 5th day of deliberations, a few hours after the jury said it had been struggling to find unanimity on charges in the 10-count indictment. The judge told the panel to keep working, but jurors emerged again after lunch to say they were still deadlocked on some counts. Daniel Harris, 24, and Brandon Caserta, 33, were found not guilty of conspiracy. In addition, Harris was acquitted of charges related to explosives and a gun. The jury could not reach the verdicts for Adam Fox, 38, and Barry Croft Jr., 46, which means the government can put them on trial again for 2 conspiracy charges. Croft also faces a separate explosive charge. They'll remain in custody. No juror spoke publicly about the mixed results. Good. Obviously, we're disappointed with the outcome. We have 2 defendants that are awaiting trial, and we'll get back to work on that, U.S. Attorney Andrew Burge said. Harris and Caserta embraced their lawyers with U.S. District Judge Robert Jonker, said they were free after 18 months in jail and awaiting trial. Family members, moments earlier, gasped and cried with joy when the verdicts were read. All right, let's grab a little bit of this.
How it takes up.
been locked up for a year and a half.
Yep.
Something the jury said he did not do.
Right. Pretty sad, huh? Well, I'm just glad he's home.
Is he happy?
I think the outcome today demonstrates what I think about the case and where I think there's reasonable doubt. And a lot of that stemmed from our concerns regarding the behavior of the FBI.
It was about showing up. It's about staying focused on the dinner table issues. It's about building a coalition, and those are the things that Joe Biden
But we still believe in the jury system, and really there's not too much more I could say at this time. I appreciate the time the jury put in, listened to a lot of evidence, deliberated quite a bit. We have two defendants that are awaiting trial, and we'll get back to work on that.
Will you go to trial with those other two again? Will you go to?
Did you think that Judge Yonker, including entrapment and the instructions?
It sounds like he's going to pursue it again. I would expect them to, and justice would make sense for them to do that.
Justice. We have to turn against the people that don't like us. Yeah, justice. The arrests in Michigan came amid upheaval in the U.S. in 2020. The year had started with pandemic lockdowns, then shifted to armed capital. Yeah, that was not an armed capital protest. By late May, anger over racial injustice and the killing of St. George, hallowed be his name, in Minneapolis, by Minneapolis police rather, erupted into demonstrations in cities nationwide. In a Grand Rapids courtroom during 13 days of testimony, persecutors offered evidence from undercover agents. 9 of them, by the way, a crucial informant, and 2 men who pleaded guilty to the plot. Jurors also read and heard secretly recorded conversations, violent social media posts, and chat messages. Ty Garvin, who pleaded guilty and is serving a 6-year prison sentence, said the plan was to get Whitmer and cause enough chaos to trigger a civil war before the election. No, it wasn't. The plan was 4 or 5 people sitting in their basements, bitching about how much they hated Gretchen Whitmer, and then a few people looking in on their Discord conversations or their conversations on the live streams that they attended and said, hey, I bet you we can get these guys to go yell for and call for a civil war. Keeping Joe Biden from winning the presidency was... Okay, yeah, it was... They were arrested in October. I was going to say, is this going to be like when they did impeachment 1.0, where Joe Biden hadn't even announced he was running for president yet, and yet he was a political enemy? Prosecutors say the group was steeped in anti-government extremism and furious over Whitmer's pandemic restrictions. There was evidence of a crudely built shoot house to practice going in and out of her vacation home, and a night ride by Croft, Fox and covert operatives, to check the party. So, how did they know what the inside of the house looked like? Did the FBI build that for him? But the defense lawyers portrayed the men as credulous weekend warriors, often stoned on marijuana, and prone to big, wild talk. They said FBI agents and informants tricked and cajoled the men into targeting the governor. Yes. So, that's what we see coming off of that. So, yes, 2 acquittals, 2 hung juries, and hopefully they come out to 2 more acquittals. But really, honestly, I'm pretty positive that, number 1, you would have to get a very, very, very sympathetic jury that likes Gretchen Whitmer and fanboys and simps over Gretchen Whitmer to get a conviction off of this. And at some point, you just got to stop trying these people. I think, honestly, with the 2, I think that this is going to wind up being hung jury after hung jury after hung jury. But some of the reaction to this as well. Let's grab one from our friends over at NPR. 2 men are acquitted in a plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Whitmer. Hung jury on 2 more. Actually, we're going to skip this one because this came over from the Associated Press, which we just read from, which is probably going to be the same information. So let's move on to the op-ed of this, and yes, again, more people who are very, 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 very angry over this verdict. They might be, even though this trial wasn't as publicized, they might be angry over this verdict than they were over the Rittenhouse one. From Think, Opinion, Analysis, and Essays. The dangerous message sent by the Governor Whitmer kidnapping verdict. By eroding trust in law enforcement, the far right can continue to claim the January 6th insurrection was nothing more than an exercise in free speech. Well, given the level of acquittals that are coming from the selfie fest, it was an exercise in free speech. And once again, officers acting in a federal capacity, opening the door and saying, hey, come on in, you're welcome. This is from Nina Burleigh, author, Virus, Vaccinations, and the CDC, and the Hijacking of America's Response to the Pandemic. The opinions that are offered in this op-ed are the opinions of Nina Burleigh and not necessarily the opinions of NBC. The opinions offered in this op-ed are also the opinions of Nina Burleigh and not necessarily the opinions of Turns the Pages Productions, Contemporary, J. Edgar, or anybody associated. Daddy, do you want a Dorito? A little girl's voice asked. Honey, I'm making explosives. Can you get away from me, please? That recorded exchange between Delaware trucker Barry Croft Jr. and his daughter was just one of hundreds of examples of audio, video, and online chatter prosecutors presented to the jury, considering the fate of 4 men accused of plotting to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer in the fall of 2020. Croft and 3 other men charged in the alleged plot were associated with the armed anti-government gang called the Wolverine Watchmen, according to federal law enforcement, but on Friday, a federal jury did not convict any of the men. Brandon Caserta and Daniel Harris were found not guilty of conspiracy. The jurors deadlocked on Barry Croft and Adam Fox, with the judge declaring mistrial on those counts, so that he can go back and try to do this again. The trial has been closely watched because of the potential implications for the increasingly bizarre relationship between Trumpist conservatives and law enforcement. In fall of 2020, during the final tense COVID-infested weeks before the election, and with the prospect of political violence on the horizon, authorities arrested and charged 13 men with a crime simultaneously ridiculous and sinister. Prosecutors say members of a Michigan militia. There were 13 men involved in this, 1 guilty plea, and 4 people on trial. What does that tell you about the odds that are stacked off of this? Prosecutors say members of a Michigan militia enraged at their female governors, and it has to be the female governor, of course, because they're Trumpists, they're sexist. Enraged at their female governor's COVID lockdown order, spent months plotting and training with the stated aim of capturing Whitmer and either putting her on trial or executing her, or abandoning her on Lake Michigan in a boat without an engine. 6 of the men, Barry Croft Jr., Ty Garbin, Daniel Harris, Adam Fox, Brandon Caserta, and Carol Franks, were indicted by federal grand jury on charges of kidnapping, conspiracy, facing a maximum of penalty of life in prison. 2 of them, Garbin and Harris, pleaded guilty and testified against the other. And they glowed in the dark when they did it. 7 more men were charged in Michigan state courts with providing material support to terrorism. Those cases will be prosecuted by the Michigan Attorney General. No, they will be dismissed by the Michigan Attorney General because they've got these big rectangles on their chest that say, in big yellow letters, FBI. But see, Nina Burleigh doesn't want you to know about that. She just wants to know that evil Trumpists were out there trying to go and kidnap a female governor. Defense lawyers argued that the government entrapped people, politically outspoken, but otherwise law-abiding men who were simply exercising their First and Second Amendment rights to speak freely and collect weapons. Typically, entrapment is extremely hard to prove. U.S. law allows law enforcers to use the tactics against someone without a predisposition to commit a crime, which is entrapment. Defendants must also essentially admit to the allegations, then approve that undercover agents or informants deceive them into the activities. Nonetheless, the pleadings of defense attorneys got mainstream coverage during the long period between arrest and trial, and were enthusiastically amplified by the larger right-wing messaging machine. There's a bigger goal here. By eroding trust in law enforcement, the far right can continue to claim that the Selfie Fest was nothing more than an exercise of free speech. Fox News personality Tucker Carlson's 3-part documentary Patriot Purge went so far as to allege the attack on the Capitol could have been a false flag operation devised by the so-called deep state to frame, trap, and purge Trump voters in a new war on terror. His claims are so baseless that we won't even look into them, that several other conservative commentators left Fox in protest. Really. So baseless that when you have the Capitol Police out there, first off, you have a denial of extra National Guard during a contentious time where there were stupid people like this talking online about going and taking and storming the Capitol. I used to work with one of them. I know. I heard him say it, and that fucking coward wasn't even there that day. Kind of wish he was. It would have made my entire work life a lot easier, but when suddenly now you know that people are coming out planning on doing this, and all of this National Guard is put away, and hey, we don't need extra police resources for this, and this is going to be happening on this day. Oh, you better not come here. Tisk tisk. It's not baseless. Most of the evidence in the trial was collected by a man the pre-Trump political right might once have lauded as an American hero, Michigan postal worker Dan Chappelle, an Iraq War veteran whose service got him a titanium leg. As a Second Amendment enthusiast who joined the Watchmen after Facebook's algorithm pushed him toward the extremist site in spring of 2020. Oh, so it's Facebook's fault. The military cosplayers who made up the majority of the Wolverine Watchmen welcomed a man with actual military training, but after only a few interactions with them, Chappelle became alarmed by the group's seemingly interest in killing police officers throughout the summer of 2020. Chappelle says he participated in semi-automatic weapons training and other activities in person and online, collecting incriminating audio and online chatter for the government, and made notes for other observers. Yeah, he was a Fed. He testified that Wolverine wives and girlfriends practiced knife and axe throwing, while their men did field training. For example, the Wolverine Watchmen and their allies, paranoid that federal authorities were onto them, which it sounds like they were, moved their conversations across a series of encrypted platforms, oblivious to the veteran in their midst providing access to the FBI. But, this is so dangerous. This is dangerous. Because of this, they might be able to say that the Selfie Fest, the most important attack on our democracy, the most dangerous attack on our democracy, we almost lost democracy that day, was just an exercise of free speech. And these people are scared. And good. Good on them. Let's grab this one here, and then I'll have the specific reply I want to go with highlighted in the next one here. But Oliver Burke says, this is terrifying. We need to rethink jury selection assumptions, given the state of our country. Being uninformed about an alleged kidnap plot about your governor and or apolitical does in fact reflect a form of bias. No, if you know every detail of this entire case going into this, or think you know every detail of it, as would be the case in most juries, then you are an activist. They just want people that they can lead into what it is that they want them to think, so they can come out and get the verdict that they want. And Tom Cortlandt gets it best and says, translation, The jury verdict didn't go my partisan way, so I must question how juries are selected selectively. And the third gentleman, the comments to this are bonkers. Don't read them. Yeah, because you're turning around getting your fucking shit shoved in. Because you had a bad take that is directly opposed to what the founders wanted for this country. But this one, which is a reply to this one here, Greg Inkpen, thank you to the Off Hours guys for bringing this one out to my attention. This will involve the mini and knucklehead to try something on a politician in the near future. Well, yeah, because if the FBI comes out and says, hey, these guys got away with it, I bet you can get away with it too. Hey, come out here and try out this new AR platform. Hey, don't you want to come back out and join in my plot to kidnap I hate the governor too, don't you worry. Hey, look, I have actual military training. Tell me about all the things that you want to do. These people are fucking ridiculous. And they think they're the good guys. From M. Live, Michigan. 5 takeaways from the Governor Whitmer kidnap plot trial. From John Agar. After nearly 5 days of deliberation, a federal court jury on Friday, April 8th, acquitted 2 men accused of plotting to kidnap Governor Whitmer. Jurors deadlocked on charges against 2 others, resulting in a mistrial. Here's a look at some of the highlights of the trial, which began March 8th in Grand Rapids. Own words weren't enough. The defendant's own words were used against them in what the prosecution considered a case with a mountain of evidence. But it wasn't enough to convict any of the 4 on trial in U.S. District Court in Grand Rapids. Dan Harris, 24 of Lake Orion, and Brandon Caserta, 34 of Canton, were acquitted of all charges. A judge declared a mistrial in the cases of Adam Fox and Barry Croft of Wyoming and Delaware, respectively. After jurors failed to reach a unanimous verdict in their entrapment defense, the defendant said that the FBI arranged meetings and devised plans. We don't make terrorists so we can arrest them. Fox's attorney, Christopher Gibbons, told jurors Fox and Croft are expected to be retried. 2. FBI calls mastermind bonehead. Croft was considered the mastermind of the alleged plot. Is Croft an FBI agent? Because that seems to be who masterminded this thing. But the FBI didn't think that highly of him. Attorney Josh Blanchard said he noted that his client nicknamed Bonehead or BH by FBI special agents. Given the defendant's fondness of alcohol, marijuana, and griping about the government, Blanchard said an FBI agent had his doubts about the group, asking, did these guys even know what's up? No, they didn't. That's why you had to lead him to it. Fox, meanwhile, was named the leader of the Michigan chapter of a fake national organization, the honor bestowed upon him by an informant who was terminated by the FBI after his arrest in Wisconsin on a firearms charge. Oh, so we have an FBI agent who can get back in the graces of the good graces of the U.S. by, hey, come and listen to these guys talk about what they want to do to the government, and hey, we'll just make this go away. Living in a buddy's basement. Fox was living in the basement of his buddy's business, the Back Shack near Grand Rapids, when he was arrested. There was no running water, and he was down on his luck and needed a place to stay. While there, he had secret meetings with those linked to the plot to kidnap the governor. He and Croft weren't convicted, but they weren't cleared either. Both went back to jail after the jury verdicts. Caserta and Harris went home. U.S. Attorney Andrew Burge says Croft and Fox would be retried. 4. Others regret plea deals. Oh, you bet your ass they do. And they might go back and appeal them at this point. Considering the 2 acquittals, Caleb Franks of Waterford and Ty Garbin of Livingston County could have plea deal remorse. Both pleaded guilty to conspiracy to kidnap and testified against the former co-defendants. Garbin is serving 6 years, 3 months in a federal prison, which is a lot better than life. Franks is awaiting sentencing. They'll likely have to tell their story again. 8 others are charged in state courts, and their plea deals require cooperation. And number 5, chilling testimony. The trial included a chilling testimony with Croft and others allegedly calling for another U.S. Civil War. He allegedly said on Facebook that Whitmer ought to be hanged, while Fox allegedly said, Whitmer ought to be hanged is chilling. I hope the people at M Live never read the live chat in this program. While Fox allegedly said that she should be put on display for photos after the kidnapping. FBI Special Agent Thomas Zamansky, assigned to the Baltimore office, testified that Croft wrote on Facebook in April 2020 that, I believe all it's going to take is one state to burn and hang a governor and the dominoes will start falling. The investigator said Croft also wrote, which governor is going to end up dragged off and hanged the first? So those are your 5 takeaways from completely unbiased M Live. Look, really honestly, it should be harder to make a case against people. It should be harder to put people in jail, not easier. I stand against a lot of my conservative counterparts on that because it should be. Especially when you're doing it at a federal level, like these people were, with the FBI involved. Now, local, that depends on your municipality, honestly. And whether it should be harder or easier, that's something you should take up with your city council, your county board, or your state government. But on a federal level, it should be almost impossible to directly have the federal government go after people, except in the case of interstate commerce. Which I guess, okay, technically that would fall under that because 2 of the people were from Wyoming and Delaware, and they were planning on taking the woman to Wisconsin, which that I think was the big part of the entrapment, was to take Whitmer out to Wisconsin, because that instantly makes this a federal case because it involves 2 states. It's interstate commerce. So all of this was entrapment, right from the beginning to the end. So that's what we see coming up with that. All right, let's go talk about the Selfie Fest, because this is dangerous, because this might have implications on trying to try some of the people from January 6th. First and foremost, one from the New York Times, a former newspaper. Pro-Trump rally planner is cooperating in Justice Department's January 6th inquiry. Ali Alexander, who was a key figure in the Stop the Steal movement, said he received a grand jury subpoena and would assist in the expanding investigation. What are you thinking? Plant or coward? Plant as in, I organized this, I made this happen because we need to expose how dangerous the Trump people are, or coward because, please take mercy on the courts, I don't want to have to tape my butt shut to go to the jail. From Alan Fewer, Ali Alexander, a prominent organizer of pro-Trump events after the 2020 election, has agreed to cooperate with the Justice Department's investigation of the attack on the Capitol last year. The first high-profile political figure known to have offered assistance to the government's newly expanded criminal inquiry. Speaking through a lawyer, Mr. Alexander said on Friday that he had recently received a subpoena from the federal grand jury that's seeking information on several broad categories of people connected to pro-Trump rallies that took place in Washington after the election. In a statement from the lawyer, Mr. Alexander said that he was taking a cooperative posture with the Justice Department's investigation, but did not know what useful information he could give. He also disavowed anyone who took part in or planned violence on January 6th. While it remains unclear what Mr. Alexander might tell the grand jury, he was intimately involved in the sprawling effort to mount political protests challenging the results of the election, and had contact with other organizers, extremist groups, members of Congress, and according to the House committee investigating the Selfie Fest, White House officials during the period after Election Day. So, of course he's running qual. Well, I don't know what it is that I could do. I don't know. I don't know where this guy stands, but he's being very cooperative now. Let's grab one from NBC. Man charged in January 6 riots backs out of plea deal after fellow defendants acquitted. Good. Take it to fucking court. Fight it. Fight it. Fight every aspect of this. Look at all the soy there. Look at all the soy. Should we listen to this soy a little bit? How QAnon went mainstream. Fever dream come true for the worst people of the internet. No, this is Tennessee Republicans amend bill that would have eliminated requirements for marriage. Which is a stupid idea, by the way. Alright, this is from Ryan J. Riley. A man charged in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol backed out of a planned plea deal with the government Thursday, day after a federal judge acquitted another defendant. Sean Witzman, who faces 4 misdemeanor charges, was scheduled to plead guilty next week, but he changed his mind after U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden, an appointee of the president, found former federal contractor Matthew Martin not guilty during a bench trial. McFadden said the prosecutors did not prove Martin knowingly entered the restricted building, and he may have believed police officers had led him into the building. Guy L. Womack, an attorney for Witzman, said the verdict in Martin's case was the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back and led to Witzman's decision to back out of the planned plea deal and take his chances at a trial. He didn't want to plead guilty to begin with, but he was afraid to trust the judicial system in D.C., Womack said, because of the court's proximity to the Capitol and the impact of the attack on the Selfie Fest had on Washington residents, but seeing that the judge did the right thing in the Martin case affected his thinking, Womack said. Witzman, in a message to NBC News, said he wanted to resolve the case more than anyone, but a plea agreement would have forced him to lie under oath. After thoughtful consultation with my family, my attorney, and my God, it's obvious that the trial is the only acceptable option at this time, Witzman said. And you should, by the way. You absolutely should. Now, I have taken a deal. I don't know that it was a plea deal, because I was acquitted of the charge that was put on me. But I have taken a deal. But at this point, given, especially if it's politically motivated, there should be no deal taken whatsoever. Take that shit to court and fight it. Now, the deal that I took obviously brought everything back down into a full acquittal with restitution on a court order. They tried to charge me with felony vandalism over an accident. And there was an accident, and I did break the window. It was an expensive window. So I paid the restitution. I paid for what I broke with no charges. Like, okay, here you go. And then the owners pretty much just put the restitution in their pockets and didn't fix anything. Which, I mean, that's not surprising either. But as far as this goes, I mean, unless there is an acquittal out there, if it's like, if your plea deal is pay restitution and you have a clean record, that's one thing. Take that plea deal, because you're never going to get another one like that again. But if you are facing and they're trying to plead you down to a lesser charge, tell them to fuck themselves, especially in a situation like this. Because they want the propaganda. They want to be able to come out and say, 12 plea deals, 6 convictions, 75 indictments. Look at all these people that pleaded guilty. They know that they did wrong. So good, absolutely. From Politico, judge restores January 6 defendant's gun rights over DOJ objection. Jenny Cudd of Texas had asked the probation condition to be set aside, citing threats she received after her publicity about her role in taking selfies in the Capitol. From Josh Gerstein and Kyle Cheney. A judge has restored Texas woman's rights to possess firearms just weeks after she was sentenced for illegally entering the Capitol on January 6th. District Court Judge Trevor McFadden issued an order on Thursday granting florist Jenny Cudd's request to lift a term of her probation that forbade her to possess any firearm, ammunition, destructive device, or dangerous weapon. Cudd had asked that the condition be set aside, citing threats she received following the publicity of her role in the storming of the Capitol, as lawmakers were prepared to certify Biden's win in the 2020 presidential election. Selection, not election. The judge's ruling was a rebuke to prosecutors who opposed the change, and it was the latest setback for prosecutors dealt by McFadden, who was appointed by former President Trump. The decision further cements the judge's reputation as the most skeptical member of the D.C. Circuit Court bench about the stance prosecutors have taken in the wake of the Capitol Selfie Fest. In his two-page ruling on Tuesday, McFadden noted that Cudd wore a bulletproof sweatshirt to the January 6th rally, but he credited her explanation that she wore the defensive garment because she feared violence, not because she was seeking it. The government presented no evidence that Cudd incited anyone to violence, McFadden wrote, nor did it present evidence that she participated in the violence. She has no prior criminal history, and Cudd's bulletproof sweatshirt is consistent with her fear of being attacked at the rally preceding her entry into the Capitol. This says nothing about her danger to others. The government, let's see. McFadden cited the Supreme Court's 2008 ruling in D.C. v. Heller that held that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual's right to self-defense. The court will not limit that right for a nonviolent misdemeanant who credibly fears for her safety, the judge wrote. Yeah, and that's been something the prosecutors have been trying to come out with and go with this, that even if the people get misdemeanors, they lose their right to vote and their right to keep and bear arms, which, I mean, that one is a big one to a lot of the people who did participate in this, knowingly or unknowingly. But if you're a misdemeanor, there's no reason to do that. I mean, yes, if you're a convicted violent felon, that's a completely different story. But also, with the loss of gun rights, it would be easy to propagandize to other people that, hey, this is a convicted violent felon, and we should do something about this. So, that's what we see off of that, and good for that.
Good.
Some more court stuff here from the Daily Mail. Bill Clinton appointed judge rejects Trump's bid to have him removed from a conspiracy lawsuit against Hillary by accusing his legal team of judge shopping and insists that he has never met the Clintons. From Rob Crilly, senior U.S. political reporter for DailyMail.com. A federal judge on Thursday refused Donald Trump's request to stand aside from handling his lawsuit against Hillary Clinton, saying that there was no legitimate reason for why his appointment by President Clinton should disqualify him. I know why. Because it is a conflict of interest. In a strongly worded 5-page ruling, Judge Donald Middlebrooks said he never met the Clintons and hinted that Trump was judge shopping. Every federal judge is appointed by a president who is affiliated with a major political party, and therefore, every federal judge could theoretically be viewed as beholden to some extent or another, he wrote, while they already are. As judges, we must transcend politics. Trump last month filed a suit against Clinton and a slew of other Democrats, accusing them of trying to spread smears about him during the 2016 campaign. The case was assigned to Middlebrooks, who was appointed by President Clinton in 1997 to the Southern District of Florida federal court. Look, I think that he should be recused from this. And furthermore, I don't think that the Donald should also be able to sit in front of any judge that he appointed either. Because on both ways, on both directions, that is a conflict of interest. Not only that, that is a direct conflict of interest. In his Thursday ruling, he said all judges, by virtue of their appointment, could be considered to have political backgrounds, but without any evidence to the contrary, should be considered impartial. Look, I don't care if it's an Obama judge. that sits and tries this. I don't care if it's a Bush judge, but Trump-appointed judges and Clinton-appointed judges do have a conflict of interest in this case. I'm sorry. That is exactly how that should be and how that should go. So somebody needs to go back and bring this particular judge under the in front of the ethics board. Because that is not only illegal, that's unethical. He said that while judges had a duty to step aside if there were grounds for claims of partiality, he also had a duty to not step aside if complaints were being made as part of litigation strategies, a course sometimes known as judge shopping. No, this is not judge shopping. This is that, yes, you do have a conflict of interest in this case, Middlebrooks. And again, so would anybody who was appointed during Trump. From the Daily Wire, Mr. Banana's favorite outlet. Really? Pete Buttplug apparently surprised to hear many black people are unhappy with Democrats. From Zach Jewell. And we have video. We have video on this, but I've got separate video as well. Because he got into it with Navarro too. Former Democratic presidential candidate and current Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg joined Charlemagne the God on his show, The Breakfast Club, on Friday, and he was surprised to hear that many black people are unhappy that Democrats haven't kept their promises. You do realize, Pete, that a lot of black people feel like Democrats have kept no promises since they've been in office, Charlemagne said. Buttigieg seemed startled by the comment. Really? He asked. Yes, Charlemagne replied. Al Sharpton has said that 1,000,000 times. The Transportation Secretary then said he understood. I get it because the work is not done, but the reason I say really is because we just passed one of the biggest pieces of infrastructure legislation in American history. It was a promise, and we actually did it, he said, referring to the $1.2 trillion pork barrel bill signed by President Biden this November. Charlemagne admitted he was happy to see the infrastructure bill pass, but said those are big, broad things, and that's great. But I'm talking about things like the George Floyd Policing Act, our voting rights, referring to the leftist claim that Republican states are infringing on minority voting rights. Buttigieg then agreed, stating, "You're absolutely right. The work is not done. That work has to get done, and it's acceptable where we are right now." The former Democrat presidential candidate made headlines earlier this week for his appearance on The View when he agreed that Florida's parental rights and education law could kill kids. When asked by The View co-host Anna Navarro if he agreed with his spouse, Chasten Buttigieg, that the Florida law could kill kids, Pete responded, "Yeah, he's right, and I think every law ought to be judged for its effect it's going to have on people in real life, and I get the political reasons why they're doing this. I think about it, and Chase and I think about a lot of things," Buttigieg told The View, "if our kids were in the classroom in a state where one of these laws passed." Well, let's listen to what it is that he had to say on some of these, and we'll check the New York Post and see if there is anything else to go along with it as well. But let's start with the Charlemagne the God one, the clip from that. And we might go back into the Daily Wire and grab some more of the clip, because I think they've got more.
You do realize, Pete, a lot of black people feel like Democrats have kept no promises since they've been in office.
Really?
Yes. Reverend Allen said that 1,000,000 times. I'm sure he'll be pressing you about that tomorrow.
Look, I get it.
You do realize, Pete, a lot of black people feel like Democrats have kept.
All right, so that's just one little clip off of that. Let's grab the one from The View. Greg Price tweets out, "Navarro, do you agree that the Florida law, parents' law will kill kids?"
In my state of Florida, with the so-called "don't say gay" law now, which he says will kill kids. Do you agree? And as a politician, because this strikes you as your husband is a teacher,
yeah.
You are obviously LGBTQ yourself, and you are now a parent.
Yeah.
So How do you feel about
Yeah,
this?
he's right. And I think every law ought to be judged for the effect it's going to have on real people in real life. And I get the political reasons why they're doing this. By the way, some of those political reasons is they don't have a plan on anything else, right? I mean, they don't have a plan on dealing with inflation or dealing with gas prices or dealing with the issue.
In my state of Florida, when the
Well, they actually do. It's to stop spending the money, which that would be a shot coming from a Republican anyway, but to stop spending the money, to stop printing the money, and of course to drill, baby, motherfucking drill. I should want to go back to this Daily Wire article and see if we can grab some more of this this interview. Of course, we can't do the whole thing, obviously, because, you know, time crunch. It's already after 9.
But you do realize, Pete, a lot of black people feel like Democrats have kept no promises since they've been in office.
Really?
Yes. Reverend Allen said that a million times. I'm sure he'll be pressing you about that tomorrow.
Look, I get it, because the work is not done. But the reason I say really is we just passed one of the biggest pieces of infrastructure legislation in American history. It was a promise, and it wasn't just a promise that the Biden-Harris administration made or that us Democrats made in 2020. This is a promise that every president and every Congress has made in some way, shape, or form for as long as I've been an adult. And we actually did it.
But those are big, broad things, and that's great. But I'm talking about things you campaigned on, like the George Floyd Policing Act, and the fact that our voting rights, man, like 19 states have implemented voter suppression bills. You know that's going to directly impact us the most. And the only strategy Democrats are going to have is we got to go out there.
How? I'm sorry. I know we're supposed to be focusing on. I can't think of the Mad Magazine guy's name. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can see the face, but. I mean, I know we're supposed to be focusing on Pete, Mayor Pete. But do you really believe this propaganda, Charlemagne? Do you really believe that you are going to be affected somehow in elections? Prevented from voting somehow? Because I think you're full of shit.
And vote in mass numbers to fight it. That's
right.
not a strategy.
No,
Hope is not a strategy.
Right, mobilization is a strategy. And these tactics that you're talking about make mobilization harder. And you're absolutely right. That work is not done. That work has to get done. And it's not acceptable where we are right now. I think all of that's true.
Yeah,
I get it.
And you know what really is scary is seeing a lot of women's reproductive rights.
Oh my God,
regressing, and LGBTQ community, their rights being taken away
Don't
state by state.
Yeah.
Right, voting rights being taken away state by state. Those things are scary. Even in the education system, you know, just not being able to discuss certain things state by state.
Right.
That's a scary thing to me, and it's like we see it expanding.
No, that's right. And so again, part of the answer is organizing at the state level, because in this country, a lot of the power and a lot of the decisions are actually at the state level. What's happening in our schools, even the way elections are run, right? That plays out at that level. But look, I don't think anyone on our side is satisfied with how far we've come on whether it's the George Floyd Policing Act, whether it's voting rights. What I'll say is we're pushing for as much as we can get in terms of results in Congress, and taking whatever executive actions are available to the president.
And I love the fact that he can come back out here and say, well, it's the thing with elections and policing and things like that all gets done at the state level. But we're still going to go back and try to federalize it. It's not our fault because it hasn't happened yet, but we're gonna do something different about it. So that's what we see off of that. All right, let's go talk about Ketanji Brown Jackson. Starting with Axios. McConnell won't commit to hearings for Biden SCOTUS picks if the GOP takes the Senate. That's a trick you learned from Harry Reid, but, you know, Axios doesn't want you to know about that. From Aaron Doherty. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell said Thursday that he won't commit to hearings for the potential Supreme Court nominee if he's the majority leader leading up to the 2024 election. The minority leader told Axios' Jonathan Swan that he wouldn't put the cart before the horse, but he would expect President Biden to moderate if Republicans retake Congress. What I can tell you for sure is if the House and Senate are Republican next year, the president will finally be the moderate he campaigned as. McConnell refused to answer whether he was devising an argument against holding a potential hearing on a Supreme Court nominee next year. McConnell in 2016 vowed that he wouldn't hold Supreme Court hearings on then-President Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland, saying Obama made the nomination in order to politicize it for the purposes of the election. The Senate Minority Leader also said last year that his party would block a Supreme Court nominee in 2024 if Republicans take back the chamber. I don't think either party, if it were different from the president, would confirm a Supreme Court nominee in the middle of an election, McConnell said in June of 2021. What was different in 2020 was that we were of the same party as the president. Which is absolutely true, and it's absolutely fair, and McConnell needed to say that the first time when it came to Garland/Gorsuch. That's what he needed to say in 2016. Because the Democrats wouldn't be shy about saying that. But they pushed Breyer. They pushed Breyer to retire specifically so they could have a nominee in this term. Because they don't think that they're going to get the chamber back next year. Let's be full on. We know that there's going to be a honking. We know that there are going to be shenanigans, even though the 2020 election was the freest and fairest, most safe and secure election in history. 81 million votes, 10 scoops of ice cream. Hong Kong, most popular president in history. We know that there are going to be shenanigans, but I don't think that they believe there are going to be enough shenanigans to do it the way they want it to be done. And hell no, he probably isn't going to commit to hearings for a Supreme Court pick. Absolutely is not. Unless it's J. Michelle Childs. At which Lindsey Graham will get up there after he's done pretending to be a fucking taffy apple and say, oh, we're finally getting the promised justice that I think that we should have, okay? Let's come out and confirm her right away. Do you love me yet, Mr. McCain? From CNN. Jackson marks her historic confirmation with a moving speech. We've made it, all of us. Let's have a listen.
To be sure, I have worked hard to get to this point in my career, and I have now achieved something far beyond anything my grandparents could have possibly ever imagined. But no one does this on their own. The path was cleared for me so that I might rise to this occasion.
Somebody else did it for me.
And in the poetic words of Dr. Maya Angelou, I do so now while bringing the gifts my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. So as I take on this new role, I strongly believe that this is a moment in which all Americans can take great pride. We have come a long way toward perfecting our union. In my family, it took just one generation to go from segregation to the Supreme Court of the United States. And it is an honor, the honor of a lifetime, for me to have this chance to join the court, to promote the rule of law at the highest level, and to do my part to carry our shared project of democracy and equal justice under law forward into the future. Thank you again, Mr. President and members of the Senate, for this incredible honor.
I don't like this speech. I really don't. I look at this, I hear what's being said here. One of the big problems that I have with this almost immediately is the fact that she said right there, I couldn't get here on my own merit. Somebody else had to do it for me. The way was cleared for me. Telling us that she couldn't compete against an open and fair field. Whether or not she could, I don't know. I have questions. But let's read on. Let's see what it is that what they're saying here. This is from Kate Sullivan. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson marked her historic confirmation to the Supreme Court with a moving speech from the White House Friday, in which she celebrated the hope and promise of a nation where it was possible for her family to go from living under segregation to a Supreme Court appointment in one generation. It has taken 232 years and 115 prior appointments for a black woman to be selected to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we've made it. We've made it, all of us, Jackson said, while standing alongside one of the most racist presidents in modern history, one of the most racist presidents post-Civil War, and Joe Biden. Jackson continued, and our children are telling me that they see now more than ever, here in America, anything is possible. Also, they tell me that I'm a role model, which I take both as an opportunity and a huge responsibility. The judge quoted the poet Maya Angelou and said, I do so now while bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. Jackson said her confirmation in the nation's highest court was something that all Americans can take great pride in, and that the U.S. has come a long way towards perfecting our union. Biden celebrated Jackson's confirmation and said, this is going to let so much sunshine on so many young women, so many young black women, so many minorities, that it's real. Man, they smell good. So, there's your speech. In a super spreader event where nobody was masked, by the way. Speaking of things from the government, from the Blaze, Alabama legislature approves bills to protect kids from radical leftist gender ideology, including a measure that makes it felony to provide gender reassignment surgery or meds to people under 19. I guess I would have said 18, but, you know. The Alabama state legislature has passed a bill that would make it a felony to prescribe or administer puberty blockers or gender transition hormones to conduct gender reassignment surgeries on individuals in that age range. The bill also states that teachers in other public and private schools may not hold back information from a parent related to a child's feelings that their gender identity does not align with their biological sex. While many Americans would support this type of legislation as a common sense way of protecting children, not everyone shares that view. The Associated Press reported that Democratic Rep. Neil Rafferty, who is gay, seemed to struggle to restrain his anger and keep his composure as legislators headed to the vote. "This is wrong," Rafferty said, according to the Associated Press. "Y'all sit there and campaign on family being the foundation of our nation. But what this bill is doing is totally undermining that. It's totally undermining family rights, health rights, and access to health care." Look, if you're really that transgender, you'll still be that transgender at 19. put on a fucking dress, go smash all the state records, and then when you're 19, get your cock chopped off. The state legislature also approved another piece of legislation that would mandate that, wow, that's an unfortunate typo, that pubic K-12 schools, I think they meant to say public. That is an unfortunate typo in this kind of article, by the way. K-12 schools require that people utilize the multiple occupancy bathrooms that align with their biological sex. The measure would also prohibit teaching students about sexual orientation or gender identity in kindergarten through 5th grade. The pieces now head to KIV. Liberals around the country have recently been in uproar over a Florida law that includes provision that prohibits teaching students about sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through 3rd grade. And the whole bathroom thing, that's been the biggest measure of concern for me for the entirety of this entire thing. Because they've had to make a bathroom a political statement. Now, a changing room, I can maybe have a discussion about, and yes, I understand that in a lot of gyms and such, the changing room, the locker room, and the bathroom are one and the same. I still don't think it should be, because if you got a big fucking swinging one, you shouldn't be in the women's locker room either. But as far as the bathroom goes, as far as the toilet goes, you're in there to evacuate waste. You choose the one if you're in a public place that has the facilities that are most efficient for evacuating your waste. If you're standing up and you got a big fucking swinging one, you stand at the urinal. If you have indoor plumbing, you sit down on the toilet. And that's it. We can have, like I said, we can have a conversation about the changing room. I'm still in the camp of, okay, if you got a big swinging one, you shouldn't be in the women's room, but, you know, and if you've got indoor plumbing, I can't imagine why you would ever want to be in the men's locker room. They're horn dogs. They say stupid shit. But as far as, like, and safety and such would go, I mean, there's a place to have the conversation. I don't know what the answer is to that, but as far as waste evacuation goes, go into the bathroom that's got the proper plumbing to take care of your proper plumbing and get on with your day. You shouldn't have to think that hard about how you pee. Republican lawmakers are protecting kids from puberty blockers. Trans surgeries are put on notice by the DOJ. This is from Amanda Presser-Giacomo. This wasn't a leftover one, but I got very curious about this one when I read about this. White House Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobblehead said on Thursday that lawmakers who are working to protect minors from puberty blockers and transgender surgeries will have been put on notice by the U.S. DOJ. Let's circle back to this here. Alabama lawmakers and other legislators who are contemplating these discriminatory bills. Is there a video for saying this? There is. Have been put on notice by the DOJ and the Department of Health and Human Services that laws and policies preventing care that health professionals recommend for transgender minors may violate the Constitution and federal law, Psaki said at a press briefing. Psaki's comments were in reference to an Alabama legislature bill, passing a bill that would ban doctors from mutilating children or putting them on puberty blockers as they identify as the opposite sex. The Alabama Senate also passed a parental rights bill that eliminates teachers' instruction on sexuality and gender identity between kindergarten and 5th grade. The advancement of puberty blockers for people who don't medically need them, that actually bothers me just a little bit, because what do we know about the conspiracy theories about Democrats is that they love little kids. And they love people who look like little kids. And if you go on a puberty blocker until you're 18, 19, 20 years old, or however long you are, you continue to look like a little kid until you're past the legal age of consent. So I have different squeamish concerns about this. But let's listen to what the red-haired bobblehead had to say.
Republican lawmakers are currently debating legislation that, among many things, would target trans youth with tactics that threatens to put pediatricians in prison if they provide medically necessary life-saving health care for the kids they serve. Just like the extreme government overreach we've seen in Texas, where politicians have sent state officials into the homes of loving parents to investigate them for abuse just to harass and intimidate the LGBTQI+ community, today's vote in Alabama will only serve to harm kids. But Alabama's lawmakers and other legislators who are contemplating these discriminatory bills have been put on notice by the Department of Justice and the Department of Health and Human Services that laws and policies preventing care that healthcare professionals recommend for transgender minors may violate the Constitution and federal law. To be clear, every major medical association agrees that gender-affirming healthcare for transgender kids is a best practice and potentially life-saving. All of this begs an important question. What are these policies actually trying to solve? Today in Alabama, instead of focusing on average per month than any other president in history. And last month, the unemployment rate fell to 3.6%, down from 6.7% when the president took office about 15 months ago. This historic job growth is a direct result of the American Rescue Plan, which funded our vaccination strategy, reopened schools, and helped grow the economy from the bottom up and the middle out.
And also, finally throwing all the people off expanded unemployment probably did a lot to that too.
Last item for you before we get to your questions. Across the country, as we've talked about a bit in here, Republican elected officials are engaging in a disturbing, cynical trend of attacking vulnerable transgender kids for purely partisan political reasons. Today in Alabama, instead of focusing on critical kitchen table issues like the economy, COVID, or addressing the country's mental health crisis, Republican lawmakers are currently debating legislation that, among many things, would target trans youth with tactics that threatens to put pediatricians in prison if they provide medically necessary life-saving health care for the kids they serve. Just like the extreme government overreach we've seen in Texas, where politicians have sent state officials into the homes of loving parents to investigate them for abuse just to harass and intimidate.
I don't think that you should be the one that's talking about extreme government overreach because of the administration that you lie for on a daily basis, that your job is to lie for. I'm not just picking on Psaki either on that, by the way. Before somebody runs off and gets all soy about, he must be a Trump supporter. He must worship Sarah Sanders and Kayleigh McEnany, which I did enjoy Sarah Sanders, but I knew full well that that was her job as well, to lie for the president. McEnany, to lie for the president. It's been the job of every press secretary in history to lie for the president, to make them look good. That is their job. But they're put on notice. So, you remember that time that they told us that this stuff is not getting taught in here and to little kids? And why are you even worried about what's being taught to little kids? Because none of this is getting taught to little kids. From Fox News. New Jersey to require second graders to learn about gender identity in fall, alarming parents. From Houston Keene. Where's Mr. Bananas? I want to see him go all soy about the fact that I'm reading Fox News. A New Jersey public school, second graders, will be getting a lesson in gender identity this fall under state sex education guidelines that will take effect in September. According to the standards, New Jersey students should, by the end of second grade, understand the core ideas that all individuals should feel welcome and included, regardless of their gender expression, or sexual orientation. Additionally, the standards listed performance expectations for second graders, which includes discussing the range of ways people express their gender and how gender role stereotypes may limit behavior. Educators in the Garden State are preparing to carry out the teaching standards, which were established in 2020, but not required to be enacted until September of 2022. One school district in the state distributed sample lesson plans indicating the first graders could be taught that they could have boy parts but feel like a girl. The lesson plans, which were given to parents at the Westfield Board of Education's February 22nd meeting, appear to be reflective of the Garden State's new, broader sex education curriculum. One lesson plan, Purple, Pink, and Blue, instructs teachers to talk to their first graders about gender identity, and its first objective is to have students be able to define gender and gender identity and gender role stereotypes. The lesson's second objective is to have the students name at least 2 things that they've been taught about gender. Role stereotypes and how those things may limit people of all genders. But don't worry, it's never going to happen. It's not even happening. Why are you even worried about this? Why are you passing laws about it? From the Hill. LA officials banned business travel to Florida and Texas over harmful LGBT policies. My question here is, when did they reinstate them? Because they've already banned... Los Angeles officials have already banned travel to Texas like 3 times. Just since I started doing contemporary. I think it's been 5 times since I started being politically active. From Brad Dress. The LA County Board of Supervisors voted this week to ban official travel to the states of Florida and Texas over policies and legislation that target treatment for transgender youth and teaching of LGBTQIARRMGTLF27+I issues in school. On Tuesday, the board unanimously approved a motion directing the chief executive officer to suspend all travel to the 2 states for county business until the policies are suspended or repealed, according to a video of the board's meeting. Exactly what travel do you need to do in order that requires you to go to Texas or Florida for state business? Now, if you go there on vacation, that's one thing, and the government can't tell you dick about that, but what exactly would a Los Angeles County Board executive need to go to Texas or Florida for? On official business. And a better question is, taxpayers in California, why are you paying for this? From the Daily Wire, Biden set to announce new crackdown on gun rights this week, according to a report. From Ryan Saavedra. Democrat President Joe Biden is reportedly set to announce a new crackdown on gun rights this week, with one of the most extreme far-left anti-gun activists set to attend the event. That's the Associated Press. The Biden admin will come out with its long-awaited ghost gun rule aimed at reining in privately made firearms without serial numbers that are increasingly cropping up at crime scenes. Where? As soon as Monday. Where? What crime scene has had a ghost gun appear at it? Because you know what? This mass shooting that we have to forget about now in San Francisco, that didn't have a ghost gun, in spite of the fact that Biden came out almost immediately and said, "It's the ghost gun thing! Come on, man!" Where? Where are these ghost guns coming? Because especially, again, given the fact that this is supposed to be the big thing that is going to upend our society, supposedly because that's what's actually happening here, that this is upending our society, you would think that there would be a news story. As soon, if they're cropping up everywhere, then there'd be one every day. But you know what? I think it's a load of shit. The White House has also been weighing on naming Steve Dettelbach, a former U.S. attorney from Ohio, to run the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, or ATF. David Hogg tweeted on Saturday that he would be in attendance for the event, writing, "I will be at the White House on Monday for an announcement from the president on what actions are being taken to reduce gun violence." So are you actually going to be there, or are you going to wait until something actually happens and then get on your bike and ride there as fast as you fucking can? I mean, this is just a way to try to make this kid relevant again. Just like Twitter promoting him to the top on everybody's shit. He added, "Many in the movement, including myself, have been working on this for months, but looking to finally see the results." The Biden admin released its proposed rule last May, which would modernize the definition of frame or receiver and help close a regulatory loophole associated with the unserialized, privately made firearms that the admin claimed are increasingly being recovered at crime scenes across the country. Where? The admin claimed that the rule would take on ghost guns in 3 ways. To help keep guns from being sold to convicted felons and other prohibited purchasers, the rule would make clear that retailers must run background checks before selling kits that contain the parts necessary for someone to readily make a gun at home. Which also already requires a background check, by the way. To help law enforcement trace guns used in a crime, the rule would require that manufacturers include a serial number on the firearm frame or receiver in easy-to-build firearm kits. Which is already a law, by the way. To help reduce the number of ghost guns on our streets, the rule would set out requirements for federally licensed firearms dealers to have serial numbers added to 3D printed guns or other unserialized firearms that they take into inventory. Which is already a law. The Biden admin is advocating to adding 3 laws by executive action that are already laws. All 3 of the activities that he's trying to prohibit here with this are already against the law. They're already illegal. We've committed to taking common sense steps to address the epidemic of gun violence that takes the lives of too many people in our communities, said Merrick Garland. Criminals and others barred from owning a gun should not be able to exploit a loophole to evade a background check. They can't. They go off and buy them off the street for cash, illegally in some states. In my state, that's not illegal, but in some states, illegally. And escape detection by law enforcement. This proposed rule would help keep guns out of the wrong hands and make it easier for law enforcement to trace guns used to commit violent acts. While protecting the rights of law-abiding Americans. Though this rulemaking will solve only one aspect of the problem, we have an obligation to do our part to keep our families and our neighborhoods safe from gun violence. Well, the first thing is why don't you go and enforce the gun laws that are already in the books? Because all of the people that in San Francisco that just had that shooting, or sorry, not San Francisco, Sacramento, that just had to deal with that shooting, all the people that were involved in that were already prohibited from owning firearms. And the one gun that they recovered on the night of the scene was stolen. Which is already an illegal act. You retards. Another one from Fox News. Rep. Massey cites the Constitution to slam Biden's upcoming ghost guns rule. Congress makes laws. From Emma Colton. Thomas Massey and Second Amendment advocates are pushing back against the Biden admin's upcoming rule on ghost guns, characterizing the rule to rein in privately made firearms without serial numbers as unconstitutional. Well, it is unconstitutional. It's also already a law. The Constitution does not authorize the federal government to prevent you from making your own firearm. This fact has been recognized for 200 plus years. Also, Article 1, Section 1, literally the first operative, the sentence of the Constitution, says, Congress makes laws, not the President, Representative Massey tweeted on Sunday. Biden will nominate Steve Dettelbach, the Obama-era former U.S. attorney from Ohio, as his nominee to lead the Bureau of ATF. According to the senior admin official, the president will also deliver remarks from the Rose Garden on measures his admin is taking on gun control and cracking down on ghost guns, which are privately made and don't have serial numbers. It is not illegal for you to mill out and make your own firearm. If you have a CNC, if you've got a lathe, if you've got anything else, anything that you can fashion a firearm with at home, it's not illegal to do so. The legality comes in once you start selling that armament without being an arms dealer. Now, if you sell it back to the arms dealer, that's a different story. As far as the lower receiver goes, the kit, that's already required to have a serial number. That's already illegal. What he's saying. But again, it definitely looks like it's time to come back out and do something so we can have a win, because they keep losing over and over again. But that's what we see from that. From the Blaze. The Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez poses the question, how is it that the party who believes corporations are people are suddenly trying to police who's a woman and who isn't, puppy? From Alex Nitzberg. Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez of New York has indicated that Republicans are attempting to police who is a woman and who isn't. How is it the party who believes that corporations are people are suddenly trying to police who is a woman and who isn't, puppy? These are the same people who thinks Arby's is a legal human being. I don't see them assigning genders to their shady little LLCs. Give me a break, puppy. The socialist and communist lawmaker tweeted on Friday. In response to Congressman A Woman's Post, Justin Haskins of the Heartland Institute fired back, you sound like a fool. No one argues corporations are people. The point is that they're owned by people, and those people have rights too. You may not believe that, which is true, but at least be honest and thoughtful. That's right, they are run by people who can do what it is that they want with their money. As far as who's a woman, I don't really care if you want to cross-dress and chop off your penis and do all the fun stuff. One of my favorite people in the world is transgender. I don't care about that. What I care about is people going out and using these exploited loopholes to either gain access to the locker room or destroy the women's records that women have worked so hard to get to. Because there is a difference. But if you want to run out as an adult and live your best life, once you've reached the age that all of your rights are bestowed on you, the age of 18, I don't care. And whether you do it at a collegiate level, that's between you and the NCAA. I'm still going to ruthlessly mock you for it. But that's what we see coming off of that. From the New York Post. Yellen calls for cryptocurrency regulations to reduce risks and fraud. No, it's so that they can get the taxes off of it. From the Associated Press. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says more government regulation is needed to police the proliferation of cryptocurrency and other digital assets to ward off fraudulent and illicit transactions. In practice, one result would be that users would get documentation of their crypto dealings for use in filing of their taxes. Taxpayers should receive the same type of tax reporting on digital asset transactions that they receive for transactions on stocks and bonds, so that they have the information they need to report their income to the IRS, Yellen said on Thursday at the American University. It was Yellen's first speech about cryptocurrency since President Biden signed an executive order on digital assets in March. The admin's action follows several high-profile examples of alleged cryptocurrency laundering and fraud this year. Yes, let's do a laundering on a currency that has a ledger across hundreds, if not thousands, of different computers. Yes, let's launder that way. In February, the Justice Department announced its largest ever financial seizure, more than $3.6 billion, and the arrest of a couple accused of conspiring to launder billions of dollars in cryptocurrency stolen from the 2016 hack of virtual currency exchange. And in March, federal regulators accused two siblings of defrauding thousands of investors out of $124 million in unregistered securities offerings via the digital token. To the extent there are gaps, we made policy recommendations, including assessment of potential regulatory action and legislative changes, Yellen said. No, Yellen's just trying to get the taxes out of it because, well, first and foremost, it is a big club and you're not in it. Excuse me. It's a big club, you're not in it, and you, the common man, are not allowed to go and get rich off cryptocurrency. Only people who have the government backing are allowed to go and get rich off of anything. Same thing with stocks and bonds. You are not allowed to go get rich off the stock market. Only those who are predetermined by the federal government are allowed to go get rich off of anything. It is a big club and you are not in it. But if you do decide to make a $20 or $50 bill, I was just talking to the tax lady about this, I think last Tuesday, when we got some of the information going. I was just talking to her about that, and she pointed out the fact that, yeah, if you're taking in any crypto, if you have any crypto whatsoever, make sure you get that information to me, because starting next year, they're cracking down on all of it. If you make 50 cents off cryptocurrency, you're going to get taxed on it. From WGN9, $1.8 billion state tax break deal reached direct payments to some residents included. I hope you guys are ready to go back when you're out of state and go subsidize Illinois, because with all the taxes they're suspending, they're going to have their hands out come October. Governor Pritzker and leaders of the Illinois House and Senate on Thursday announced an agreement on state spending plans aimed to fight nagging near-record inflation by giving $1.8 billion back to taxpayers. That is $1.8 billion that state does not have. The deal comes from a freeze on the motor fuel tax, a year-long hiatus on grocery sales tax, a per-household property tax reimbursement of up to $300, and an increased tax credit to the low-income working families, which violates equal protection under the law. That last part does. The plan will suspend the state tax on groceries for a year starting on July 1st. The gas tax will be frozen until January, so not eliminated, but frozen. Property tax rebates will be doubled. Taxes on school supplies will be frozen during peak times this fall. Direct checks will be sent to some families, equaling $50 for an individual or $100 per child. And the earned income tax credit will be permanently expanded. Illinoisans will benefit from the $1 billion in tax relief at the pump, in the supermarket checkout, and in their property tax bills, Pritzker said outside of his state capitol office. Flanked by Senate President Don Harmon and the House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch. On top of that, we're expanding the earned income tax credit, sending direct checks to working families. Once again, let's actually roll that back. Come August, when Illinois runs out of money, they'll have their hands out to the federal government, and you, the federal taxpayer, will be on the hook for that. Just so you know, because Illinois, on top of the fact that they just spent $1.8 billion, has no funding mechanism outside of these excessive taxes. From Politico. Back talking about Whitmer again. Whitmer sues over abortion law as governors prepare for state policy free-for-all. From Zach Montellaro and Alice Miranda Ulstein. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer filed a lawsuit Thursday challenging her state's 1931 law banning abortion. The latest move in a flurry of state activity, preparing for the possibility of overturning Roe v. Wade in a few months. The Michigan law bans abortion at any stage of pregnancy, with the exception of health of a woman, but not for cases of rape or incest. It has remained on the books for decades despite 73's Roe v. Wade decision, rendering it unenforceable and establishing the right to an abortion nationally. But with the Supreme Court expected to rule this summer on Mississippi's ban on abortion after 15 weeks, both sides of the abortion debate anticipate that justices will either completely reverse or significantly roll back Roe. That would allow pre-Roe bans in Michigan and a swath of other states to go back into effect and give states the green light to pass new ones, causing abortion access to vary dramatically from state to state. In preparation for that moment, and with a closely divided Congress unable to pass new federal abortion legislation, the battle over the procedure is already being fought in the states. Blue states are rushing to shore up their protections for people terminating pregnancy, while red states are pushing for a new wave of restrictions. Whitmer, one of the most vulnerable Democrat governors up for re-election this fall, is using extraordinary power afforded to Michigan governors to ask the Supreme Court of that state to take up abortion case directly without winding its way through the lower courts. By challenging the nearly century-old law, Whitmer hopes to establish a proactive right to an abortion under the state constitution, regardless of developments on the national level. Imagine, well, she's a Democrat. I was going to say, imagine your entire political career being hinged on killing babies. Immediately after you failed in prosecuting political enemies by sending the FBI in and telling them to stage a kidnapping plot. I don't know if this passes or not, but we'll continue to watch this. The Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, weighed in because of, well, it's an election year, and the elections are going to be in full swing. Why hand-counting ballots is such a bad idea. We have to send them through machines that have algorithms. Except in 2020, which was the freest and fairest and most secure election in history. It was only Russia that hacked the voting machines and made the algorithms favor the evil orange man, their installed preferred puppet. From Amber Phillips. There's a small but forceful push in right-wing circles to have ballots in upcoming elections entirely counted by hand. Lawmakers in at least 6 states have proposed switching to hand-counted paper ballots. The Washington Post, Rosalind Helderman, Amy Gardner, and Emma Brown report. The idea is derived from accusations made out of whole cloth that the 2020 election was stolen, and that voting, no, it wasn't stolen, freest and fairest and most secure election in history. That the voting machines are easily hacked and can't be trusted. That's false. Voting machines have been proved safe and accurate, especially when combined with audits to check their accuracy. And tallying results without machines could open up future elections to more chaos, even fraud. Here's how our ballots are counted now and why going back to voting and counting entirely by hand is such a bad idea. Most jurisdictions use voting machines to tabulate results. Voters either fill out a paper ballot and then feed it into a machine, or they make their choices on a touchscreen that prints out a paper ballot. States spent a lot of money after the 2000 presidential election to revamp voting machines to ensure none would have hanging chads, the center of the dispute about whether Republican George W. Bush or Democrat Al Gore won Florida. But the voting process does not entirely rely on machines. The machines create a paper copy of the ballot for officials to keep. After elections, officials review a statistically significant portion of these ballots by hand to make sure that the results mirror what the machines got. The process has been into place for decades and works. Oh, God. Here's why election experts say that taking machines out of the elections would inject uncertainty into the process. Number one, it takes a lot of time. Without machines, getting preliminary results from elections could take weeks or even months. It's hard to predict what a hand-counting contest would be like because it's so rare, but it's what happened last year in Arizona is so instructive, says Liz Howard, the former top election official in Virginia, who is now with the Brennan Center for Justice. It opens up the process to more errors. Humans aren't particularly good at repetitive tasks such as counting ballots. Machines were made for that, said Wendy Weiser, who directs the democracy program for the Brennan Center for Justice. Weiser said there aren't many studies about the accuracy of hand counting, but a 2012 study looked at the error rates from popular hand counting method and found a 2% error rate. There are multiple elections won or lost by much less than 1%, she said. If you're entirely hand counting ballots, voters fill out their ballots entirely by paper, which opens up a lot of room for mistakes. The disabilities community particularly opposes all paper elections, says Michael Morley, an election expert at Florida State University and a contributor to Conservative Federalist Society. For example, if someone has arthritis, it may be difficult to mark the right spot, make the mark dark enough, or erase marks completely. Hand counts are easier for bad actors to exploit. Yeah, we won't even go into that one right now. We already have methods for hand recounts. My proposal back to this has always been, and it's the same proposal that I have for long lines at voting registration, and long lines for this, long lines to vote, and you can't have food in a long line. My proposal has always been the same. Break up your districts. And break up your voting areas as well. Like, don't have 75 districts going to vote in the same place in Florida or Georgia or Alabama like they do down south. Break them up. Get as many of them done in small local municipalities, or the number of people voting there is going to be in the triple digits. I realize that's very easy to do in, like, where I live. Where there are only triple digits number of people that are interested in voting in my municipality. I understand that. But that's the way to do this, and that's also the way to eliminate the long lines that you stand in for hours and days. Break them up. Break it all up. Your local elementary school, your local high school, your city hall like it is here, a public building, a post office. But it's interesting that we're coming in here already looking for ways to call the 2022 election fraudulent. From CNN. Some foreign news, dozens killed in train station missile strike in eastern Ukraine as civilians try to flee Russian onslaught. From Olga Voitovich and Nathan Hodge. Full disclosure. Full 100% disclosure. I don't believe either side at this point. Because your CNNs are telling you right away that this was a Russian rocket and don't look over anywhere else, and this was absolutely Russia, and we must condemn them. And the Chans are already telling us that, well, we found a Ukrainian serial number on this missile. Both sides of this, of course, having skin in the game and trying to get a particular outcome from this. And there's so much propaganda coming from both sides. I don't talk about Ukraine anymore because it's impossible to get accurate information. At least 50 people, including 5 children, were killed after Russian forces carried out a missile strike on a railway station in Kramatorsk, eastern Ukraine, that was being used by civilians trying to flee the fighting, Ukrainian officials said on Friday. Pavlo Kirilenko, the head of the regional military administration in Donetsk, where the attack took place, said 98 people wounded, 16 children, 46 were women, and 36 men were taken to local hospitals. Volodymyr Zelensky said earlier that nearly 300 people were wounded in the strike. In an address to Finland's parliament on Friday, Zelensky said that Russian military hit the railway terminal, adding, "There are witnesses, there are videos, there are remnants of missiles and dead people." He said that people were crowded, waiting for the trains to be evacuated to safe territory at the station. "Why do people need to hit civilians with missiles? Why is this cruelty in the world as witnessed in Bucha and other cities liberated with by Ukrainian army, Zelensky told lawmakers. Local police said in a statement that the rocket struck a temporary waiting room where hundreds of people were waiting for the evacuation train. This is another proof that Russia is brutally, barbarically killing civilian Ukrainians with only one goal: kill, the mayor of Kramatorsk added in a statement. The mayor said that some 8,000 people per day were going to the station to evacuate during the last 2 weeks. As many as 4,000 people were there when the missile struck. Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba called the attack a deliberate slaughter. Again, way too much. Let's look at some of this here, but just way too much propaganda for me to take anything at face value or believe anything that's being put out by either the Chans or CNN or the government or the Trump people or anybody else. There's too much propaganda for this one.
The breaking news is this attack on a railway station in eastern Ukraine in Kramatorsk, and we're getting this brand new video in from the moments after the attack, literally the seconds after the attack. I do want to warn you, it is very graphic.
Сука, сколько трупов! Там дети! Одни дети, Вася!
All right, at this point, the estimates are 30 plus people killed, 100 more perhaps injured. The details are hard to pin down, but you can see the carnage there. We're joined now by a reporter from the AFP on the scene. I believe the name is Marika Bar. Can you hear me? Herva Bar.
Yes.
Herva, can you tell me what you're witnessing there?
So we've moved away from the train station now because the blast happened earlier this morning. But at the moment, we're just kind of around the hospitals trying to see what the intake is. As you say, the numbers of fatalities keeps changing. We're hearing over 40 at the moment, but there are also many, many people injured. So that's a number that could increase. But at this point, you're just seeing people trying to make sense of what happened, people at the hospitals trying to get treatment, people trying to get information about loved ones that they can't get hold of.
It looks horrifying. The video we're...
So, and it does look horrifying. It really does. And I'm sorry for the people that had to lose their lives, no matter who perpetrated this. I'm sorry for the people who had to lose their lives over it. Politico. The White House is freaked out that Putin's next win could be in Paris. From Jonathan Lemire. The White House has begun to harbor fears that Vladimir could soon notch his biggest victory over Russia's invasion of Ukraine in Paris. There's a growing concern within President Biden's admin that the narrowing polls in the French presidential election that show a tight race between incumbent Macron and far-right challenger Marine Le Pen. A possible victory by Le Pen, a Putin sympathizer, could destabilize the Western coalition against Moscow, upending France's role as a leading European power and potentially giving another NATO leader cold feet about staying in the alliance, according to 3 senior admin officials not authorized to publicly discuss private conversations. So is this the US interfering in a foreign election to try to get the outcome that they want? Is this foreign interference in an election? What does it matter to the White House, who's in the French capital? And I'd love to see the evidence that Marine Le Pen is actually a Russian asset. I'm sure that they don't have any, but I'm sure they're going to continue to try to say this as well. Senior U.S. officials have warily watched across the Atlantic for any signs of possible Russian interference in the first round of the elections. Ooh, Russian interference, which will take place on Sunday. Polls suggest that Macron and Le Pen would likely then advance to a showdown on April 24th, and that the potential two-person race would be close. Le Pen, in her third attempt to the presidency, has surged over the past couple weeks as she has toned down some of her notoriously incendiary rhetoric to focus on the cost of living issues. Millions in France are struggling to make ends meet after a 35% surge in gas prices over the past year. Her resume deeply worries the White House. Though Le Pen styles herself as a benign populist, her campaign platform on immigration and Islam are still radical, with plans to ban the veil from all public places and stop foreigners from enjoying the same rights as French citizens. Her surname in certain circles is synonymous with racism and xenophobia, thanks largely to the mainstream media, most likely. She now fronts the far-right anti-immigration party in her father founded, and she has been an unabashed admirer of Putin, whom she met in Moscow in 2017. Though she has somewhat distanced herself from the Russian president since the invasion of Ukraine, she has spoken sympathetically of Putin's rationale for the war and rejected some of the Western coalition's hardline measures against Russia. So I wonder what Hong Kong is going to go on over there to make sure the people controlling Biden get the outcome that they want. From the Blaze, Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci admits COVID-19 is not going to be eradicated, concedes that Americans should assess their own personal risk with the virus. Just like I said in May of last year, I gave them the benefit of the doubt at the beginning. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 2 weeks to figure this out. But at the onset, I've never said the virus is fake. I've always said that it's real. But I've also said that you are the first line of defense and you need to assess your own risk. If you need to wear the mask, wear the mask. If you don't, then don't. If you need to get 10,000 boosters to make sure that you feel safe, an hourly booster to make sure that you don't get the COVID, get an hourly booster. Do what's best for you. Assess your own level. Always has been. From Paul Saka. St. Anthony of Fauci, the hallowed saint and patron saint of medicine, had a very different message for Americans on Sunday, one they likely haven't heard from the White House chief medical advisor. Fauci conceded that Americans should assess their own personal risk levels for potentially being affected by the pinko fucking pox, because the virus is not going to be eradicated. You know, just like we've all said from the beginning. This is not going to be eradicated, and it's not going to be eliminated, Fauci said during an appearance on ABC's This Week. And what's going to happen is we're going to see that each individual is going to have to make the calculation on the amount of risk that they want to take. Is there a video of this? There is.
Let me ask you about the spike we've seen right here in Washington. You and I were both at the Gridiron dinner. This is a dinner that had about 600 or so attendees. So far, I believe we're at 67 people that have tested positive who were at the dinner. I'm told, at least so far, no indication of anybody seriously ill, but you know, about 10% of those infected. What is the lesson here? Should we not be holding events like this, or to the point we just talked about, is it time to accept that we can have an event like this, but there's going to be a risk? Some people will test positive. If everybody's vaccinated, you know, it won't necessarily be that serious.
I think it gets back to what we were discussing just a moment ago, John. It's going to be a person's decision about the individual risk they're going to take. I think the people who run functions, who run big dinners, who run functions like the White House Correspondents' Ball, or thinking back the Gridiron dinner, are going to have to make a determination looking at the CDC guidelines and seeing where the trends are. I mean, there are some places you go, not only is it required that you show proof of vaccination, but you have to have a negative test the day you go to a particular place. And I know a lot of social functions throughout Washington and in New York are doing the same thing. And it's up to the individual to determine what their level of risk. We don't want to poo-poo getting infected. I think people sometimes say, well, it's okay to get infected. No, it's not, because there are things like long COVID, and there are sometimes people, even though they don't require hospitalization, John, they get significantly ill. They may be at home, they may require...
So, Fauci has finally caught up to what I have been saying since the very beginning of this entire thing. You are an adult, you assess the level of risk that is best for you, and you make those decisions accordingly, based on what is best for you and your health. just like it always has been. From the Hill. DeSantis says Cold War coming between Florida and Georgia. Stacey Abrams is elected governor. Honk honk. See, why do you do stupid things? Why do you say stupid things like that? And then have all my friends still expect me to support you. That was a stupid thing to say. It's probably true, but you're not supposed to advocate for it. You dumb fuck. Ron DeSantis on Friday warned of a coming Cold War between Florida and Georgia if Stacey Abrams wins the gubernatorial election in the latter state. During a press conference in Gulf County, located in northwest Florida, DeSantis referenced the ongoing Masters Golf Tournament in Georgia, using it as an apparent segue into discussing the state's elections. DeSantis has said he really appreciates our Georgians, but that voters would have to take care of the 2022 election to prevent Abrams from winning. Look, if Stacey Abrams is elected governor of Georgia, I just want to be honest, there'll be a Cold War between Florida and Georgia, he said. Yeah, that's the thing to say about the state that, if I'm not mistaken, controls the only access into your state. Let's double check that. Now let's do maps instead. I guess there is Alabama, but that is a pain in the ass. I guess I didn't realize Florida stretched that far west. The most direct ways to get to most of your state and the major highways that come into your state come through Georgia. And you want to call them out for a Cold War? Are you fucking stupid? I don't want to see Stacey Abrams be the governor of Georgia any more than anybody else does. But that was a stupid statement. And you are a moron for making it. Alright, let's keep reading. If Stacey Abrams is elected governor of Georgia, I just want to be honest that there'll be a Cold War between Florida and Georgia, he said. I can't have former Cuban communist leader Raul Castro to my south and Abrams to my north. That would be a disaster, so I hope you guys take care of that and we'll end up in good shape. Moron. This is the guy that all my friends want me to support. The Hill has reached out to DeSantis' office for comment. Abrams, a former State House minority leader who previously ran for governor, is running uncontested in the Democratic primary field, but faces a competitive general election against Brian Kemp and David Perdue. According to latest polling, Abrams trails Kemp by 51% to 44%, and Perdue by 49% to 44%. Kemp narrowly beat out Abrams for governorship in 2018. Anyway. Some foreign news for you here. 3 dead, several other people shot in a terror attack in Tel Aviv. From Mark Osborne. Three people were shot dead and several others were injured in a terror attack in Tel Aviv on Thursday night, according to authorities. At least 12 people were shot in the attack, with victims being taken to Ishalav, Sheba, Hashemer, and Wolfson hospitals, according to Megan David Adom, Israel's National Emergency Medical Service. 2 men approximately 30 years old were pronounced dead at Ishalav Hospital. A third person, 35-year-old Barak Lufen, was pronounced dead from his injuries on Friday, according to Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Bennett identified the two others killed in the attack as his childhood friends, Itam Magini and Tomar Murad. 3 people in serious condition, a 20-year-old man, a 28-year-old woman, and a 38-year-old man were being treated for injuries, according to medical services. 4 others were being treated for mild injuries. Several other people at the scene were being treated for less stress symptoms, according to Megan David Adam.
Selamat tinggal.
So that's just the very immediate aftermath of this. Israeli security forces tracked down and killed the alleged assailant in a shootout early Friday near a mosque in Jaffa, an Arab neighborhood in southern Tel Aviv. According to the statements from the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Israel's Internal Security Service, Shin Bet, the suspect was identified by Shin Bet as a 29-year-old Palestinian man from Jenin in the occupied West Bank. So, as far as it goes, it looks like the person that was involved, the person who was responsible, has been taken down, of course, without judge, jury, and executioner, because that's how they do things. But we're starting to see, especially now, coming in, we're going to start to see reporting on more tension in the Middle East as well. So we'll continue to watch that. 2 more, and then it's on to the Daily Ignoramus. DC Club apologizes after body of dead rapper seemed to be propped on stage. From Tim Stella. A Washington, D.C. nightclub apologized Monday after a video showed what appeared to be the body of a dead rapper on stage during a funereal event. In a statement, Bliss nightclub said it was never made aware that it would what would transpire during a $40 event Sunday that was billed as the final show for Markel Morrow, known as Gnu. Morrow was found fatally shot in the parking lot in District Heights, Maryland last month. His killing remains unsolved. In a statement, Bliss said it had been contacted by the local funeral home and asked to rent out its venue for the homegoing celebration Sunday. The club offered a sincere apology to all those who may be upset or offended. Video of the event published by TMZ appeared to show Morrow in a sweatshirt and jeans with a crown on his head. He appeared to have been embalmed and propped up on stage as music played as some people danced. But don't worry, it's not a cult. In another video, spark machines could be seen showering the stage. To be honest, Gnu deserved way better in my opinion. Live long him, though, the person who posted the video commented on Twitter. Another user noted that the desecration of a human corpse is against the law. Efforts to reach Morrow's relatives Tuesday were unsuccessful. His mother, Patrice Morrow, told WTTG-TV that her family wanted to host a celebration with his body before his funeral on Monday. So this is either the weirdest way to do a funeral or a Weekend at Bernie's thing. Or maybe they just took the Joe Diffie song way too far. You know, prop me up beside the jukebox if I die. I think that might have been involved in some of this somewhere. Fill my boots up with sand, put a stiff drink in my hand. I wonder if they actually did that with Joe Diffie. Probably not, because just like this, most stuff like that is illegal. That'd be interesting to follow up on, though, to see, because I remember when he died, he died of the pinko fucking pox, honk honk. But I would have to wonder if there is some place in Nashville that's got the embalmed and deceased corpse of Joe Diffie leaning up against the jukebox. All right, and the last one. From The Blaze, public school says it's searching student lunches brought from home, confiscating excessive chips, soda, and candy. From Dave Urbanski. A Western Pennsylvania public school district announced that one of its schools was beginning to search student lunches brought from home this week and confiscating excessive quantities of chips, soda, candy, and other snacks. The Aliquippa School District posted a Facebook message saying that due to excessive amounts of outside snacks being brought into Aliquippa Junior and Senior High School, including shopping bags full of chips and bottled and canned drinks and candy, starting April 4th, each student is limited to bring to school 1 4-ounce bag of chips and 1 20-ounce bottled or canned beverage, WPXI-TV said. If more than the allotted items are brought to school, authorities will throw them out, the message said. That is theft. In addition, the rule also applies to students who bring their lunches to school, which will be searched. Some folks were none too pleased by the announcement. You're going to tell parents what they can and can't send for their child to eat? That's absurd. One Facebook commentator wrote back, according to the Center Daily Times, maybe if school lunches weren't so tiny and gross, they wouldn't need to bring extra snacks. Another commenter said the school officials called the school officials rather the lunch police and suggested they stay out of the parenting business and focus on giving our kids quality education, the paper added. However, some agreed with the rule. I don't remember being allowed to have food outside the cafeteria when I was in school, so I find it weird the school district even has to request this, one person said, according to the Center Daily Times. Parent Janisha Walker told WXPI that she's seen some of the snacks kids are bringing, and when I dropped my daughter off, and she added that she's asked her daughter, are they setting up a small store? Why are they carrying a variety of boxes of chips and 2 liters of soda into the school? Superintendent Phil Woods added at the station that some students are also selling and trading snacks, which has led to arguments and distractions, so this district wants to minimize that. So, I would continue to say that this is probably a shitty situation. Now, first and foremost, if you're going to be a parent, then be the parent. I don't agree with the school coming in and making the decision as to what it is that you can bring on and off campus as far as food stuff goes for your lunch, and with the fact that lunches are being searched that way. I don't agree with that. Should the kids be eating some of the stuff that's coming in here? Probably not. But be the parent. That is the parent's job to decide, not the school's job to decide. As far as trading and bringing stuff in bulk, number one, that is going to be, well, it's going to depend on retail licensing first and foremost in the state of Pennsylvania. So there may be some local laws or state laws that supersede that. That may be prompting some of this. But also as far as we go. As far as the lunch is being eaten in the dedicated areas for lunch to be eaten, in the designated lunch areas, and they're not just doing a snack in the middle of the class, or they're skipping class to go sell or trade or whatever the fuck it is that some of the people are trying to come out and say that they're doing, then the school shouldn't have jack fucking dick to say about what it is that the kids bring in. As long as they're eating it on a designated area. But there again, if the kids are bringing in this massive amount, and especially at the school, because our school had a school store, which we got, outside vendors came in and stocked it up. We got, remember Fruitopia? We had a bunch of that. Sodas, juices, fruit snacks, stuff like that came out of that, but that was operated by the school and went into the athletics fund. But if they're trying to set their own up, maybe try to set up a club that does that instead, sanctioned. Especially if you're having a problem with them trying to do it during class time as well. But no, if they're bringing it in, leaving it in their locker, and then eating it in the designated area during the designated time, then you shouldn't have jack shit to say about it either. All right, and now that we talk about capitalism, let's go on to the last segment of the Monday program, which is the rules of acquisition. Reading in, of course, our closing for our Monday show is us going back out here and checking out one of the Ferengi's rules of acquisition. Me being a hyper-capitalist and ultra-capitalist, I believe in some levels of trying to make the best transactions for yourself possible. And given the society of the Ferengi, they have made a religion around the rules that govern commerce both with Ferengi society and outside of Ferengi society. So we go through on Monday and read one of these rules, talk about how it's being used in the canon it's used for, whether beta or alpha canon, and also talking about how it can be used in real life. So the last time we talked about the 63rd rule of acquisition, work is the best therapy, at least for your employees, and talked about how apparently there are some people out there, and I'm one of them too, like if there's a funeral or something to go to, if I grieve, I just go to work and bury my head into something. And I know a lot of people that do that as well. They know how to do that. They know how to take care of themselves. They know how to treat themselves the best. There is no beta or alpha canon 64th rule of acquisition recorded or noted yet. So we will move right on to the 65th rule of acquisition. Win or lose, there's always Hyperion beetle snuff. And that comes from the DS9 reference book. I do believe that was also referenced in the show, but I can't remember what episode it was in. But yes, win or lose, there's always Hyperion beetle snuff. That's a good way to look at the way of the world. There are going to be some times that you're going to be out on top. Everything is going to go your way. You are going to do incredible things, and everything is going to stack up right in your favor. My February was that way. I was getting dates left and right. I was feeling great, feeling good about myself. And then March rolled in. And it came in like a lion, and it kind of went out like a lamb, too. In personal ways, not necessarily in like the weather ways, although it did in weather ways, too. But March came in. And now we're suddenly sitting here, we're having these conversations, and we're talking about the fact that, now things are starting to go great again. But March kicked my ass. But win or lose, and I won a little bit, and I lost a little bit throughout that month. But win or lose, I could always come home. I could always sit down. I had friends to talk about food with. I am in a food group on Twitter. I had friends to talk politics with, and I could sit down in this desk, win or lose, and tell you guys about the news. And have you guys still come in here and sit here and chat in the live chat, whether it be supporters or detractors, and we've had both of them as well. So, win or lose, there's always something that's going to go in your favor, no matter whether you're on top of the world or whether you get kicked in the nuts 25 times in a row. So even at some of your lowest points, always remember the simple pleasures that you have and the ways that you can still have them in your life. Win or lose, there's always Hyperion beetle snuff. And with that, we're done. We head out of here for the day. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, came and hung out with us, kept us honest, and kept us on point, and even the people who came in and were detractors. You guys still watched an advertisement to come in here, so thank you for that. We'll be back here later on tonight for KTZed Redemption. Show is pretty well prepped here. I got to bring some stuff over for that as well. But yeah, other than that, I'm going to be hanging around, just doing some real estate coursework here. I'll be listening to some of the Daily Ignoramus while I do some of my work here, but probably not active in the chat. But stick around if you're on the Twitch side, because we are going and raiding over there at the end of this program here. So thanks everybody for coming by. Join us again, same time, same channel, 5:30 p.m. Central Time for KTZed Redemption. And we'll be back here tomorrow morning as well for more Contemporary. Hope to see you guys there. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care. Oh, who subbed?